This videocast is brought to you by GanttPRO, online Gantt chart software for teams. Thanks for watching. I'm Ben Aston, founder of The Digital Project Manager.
And I'm Kelly.
And today we want to talk about project manager careers. We've actually got a workshop coming up at the end of the month that we'd encourage you to check out, all about project management careers. But maybe you're watching this because you're thinking, hey, is project management right for me? Is project management a job that I should go into? Is this a role that is going to be a good match for who I am and the kind of work I like to do? So Kelly, I want to ask you, how did you actually first get into project management?
Right. So like so many people, I actually fell right into it. So I had a friend who was a Magento developer, and she worked at a smaller e-commerce brochureware shop that did a mix of types of websites. And I was a publicist at the time. I was a senior publicist for actually a Sesame Street nonprofit brand. And she said, are you interested in project management? And I didn't even know what that meant. I had to look up what Magento was, and I had to look up what the word scope meant. That's where I was at. And and then I found myself there. And I think my soft skills of people, interaction with people, and being able to manage, a different publicity appearances across the nation and all of that I was able to apply that to this career, and it worked out. And so that's how I ended up in project management. And I was at that place for about 4 years and then moved on, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, isn't it? I don't know if this is changing as project management as an industry is growing, but I think there are probably very few people who begin their career thinking, I'm going to be a project manager. I think having some soft skills experience from somewhere else really helps. For me personally, I started off in advertising. I was an account manager at an advertising agency, and I also fell into project management when I realized that actually some of my technical skills were really useful in managing some of the projects we were doing. So that's how I got into project management. So if you're thinking, hey, I've just kind of fallen into this role, well, join the club. But Kelly, tell me, as someone who's thinking about project management, is this right for them? What do you love about being a project manager?
Right. I love being a catalyst for the team. I love sort of that being in the front lines. I mean, people say that the PM is the back to pat and the throat to choke, and I think that challenge is fun, and it keeps me on my toes. So I like the constantly moving. I like that processes and methodologies are evolving and changing, and there's different buzzwords and methodologies that are being used, and that's exciting to me because it's not always going to be a stagnant one way that is the highway application to how you're doing things. That would get boring, and boring doesn't work for me. So I like that.
I think, yeah, it's dynamic, isn't it? Things are always changing, and that makes it really exciting. I think for me, I love solving problems, and as project managers, we're constantly solving problems. And kind of like what you're talking about, I love seeing things happen and being that catalyst for making stuff happen. Like if it wasn't for us, I like to think, like projects wouldn't happen because there wouldn't be a plan. There'd be no one managing the team. No one would have that vision to see something done in quite the same way. So actually our role as project managers is really pivotal in making stuff happen. I love bringing teams together as well. You talked about those soft skills a few minutes ago. And I think, yeah, being someone who brings in people around them to make stuff happen is really fun. And then for me, I'm a jack of all trades. I'm not someone who's particularly skilled at anything. But do you know what? I'm kind of average, okay, at lots of different things. And so for me, project management ticked that box of, I'm business orientated. I love user experience. I love design. I love technology. And actually, this was a chance for me to bring this kind of jack of all trades, master of none together and wear a hat that actually my interest in these different areas could be applied in terms of leading projects.
Yeah, you know what else I love is when it comes to working with clients, I love the education aspect of being that front runner between, and not necessarily keeping the team from the client, but you are the first person that approaches the client and are explaining things to them. So I do enjoy taking maybe a more technical project and explaining it in layman's terms to the client who might not be on that same level of technical knowledge. And so I like being that person that kind of bridges the gap of, maybe where you otherwise might find misunderstanding with requirements and what's actually going to be the end product. I really enjoy being that person to help the client feel like they're part of a team and have a real partnership.
Yeah. And do you know what? There's another element that you touched on there, which is I have a really short attention span for most things. And what I like about being a project manager is that it's not business as usual. Projects, by the very definition of them, are time constrained. There's a beginning and there's an end. And so if you find that you get bored easily, project management can be a good thing because by very nature of being a project manager, you're going to move from one project to another. And the things that you're going to be working on, the clients you're going to be working with are likely to be changing and evolving. So there's always a new business to learn and understand and a new client and team to work with. So if you like change, then it's a great place to be. But Kelly, tell me, I mean, we've been talking about all the good things. People might get the idea that project management is the best job ever. We're project managers, we obviously love it, but there are sides to being a project manager that are difficult. Tell us about that. When do you hate being a project manager?
Oh boy, when do I hate it? I think that it's challenging when all of a sudden you're planning months at a time, weeks and months ahead at a time. And when it's winter, you're talking about summer months. When it's spring, you're talking about, the winter months. And you're like, oh my gosh, like you always feel like you're planning, and before you know it, you look back and a year has gone by. So I think that I don't necessarily hate that because I like to keep things moving and feel like progress is made. But it's hard to live in the present. You are always planning. You're always retroactively assessing and proactively, hopefully, planning. So rarely are you right here, right now, where you can kind of enjoy either the collaboration at hand or enjoy the launch. Because, I mean, I've never, maybe after a busy season or after a Cyber Monday, if you are in e-commerce, like maybe you have a little bit of a breath after those pushes, but rarely is it the case that you're not already planning for something else. So I love that, but again, that can be challenging because you have to take that PTO, you have to take that vacation, you have to plan out that balance. I used to think that working 60, 70-hour weeks was how you measured success, when I had to reassess that for my own well-being and for those around me, right? Both in and out of the office, to just say, okay, no, it's okay to work 35 to 45 hours a week and still consider that a success with some 1 to 2 week vacations sprinkled around, because overall I'm going to grow and be a happier human being that way. But I do think the challenging part is the balance and feeling like you have the ability to live in the present. That's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the reality is project management can be a stressful job. And it's complicated. The reason that you can easily spend and do an 80-hour week after week is because there's always, as project managers, we're trying to manage and control the project, and there's always a little bit more that you could do to make sure the project's fully under control. There's always another report that you could run. There's always some more analysis you could do. There's always some enhancing of briefs that you're writing for the team, or tickets or user stories. You can always do more. And so part of the challenge is knowing when to stop and trying to isolate the stress of work with the rest of your life. So it can be stressful. It can be complicated. I think another reason why we carry this burden and why it can be tempting to do these really long hours is because really what we're doing is we're taking responsibility for the delivery of a project. If there's one person to blame for a project going wrong, the really easy target is the project manager. We carry an enormous amount of responsibility. And so as project managers, we want to be successful. We want to deliver great projects. And so that stress of being you know, carrying this burden of the project can be really intense. We're an easy person to blame when things go wrong. And we're actually the last person that anyone will ever thank. So, you know, when a project goes well, people are like, okay, well, good. I mean, that's your job. Of course, you know, it went well. When it goes badly, then you're the one to blame. And in between, you know, I work in advertising and marketing. Everyone else, there's awards. There's awards for everybody else. There's awards for creative, for user experience, for development. There's no awards for project managers. And that's because we're just, you know, that's just our job, making sure it's delivered on time, on budget, with the right scope, making sure it's delivering value. So if you are someone who thrives on affirmation, on being constantly congratulated for keeping the project on track, that's probably not going to happen. It's stressful, it's complicated, and it can be really, really demanding. So there's good sides and there's bad sides. It kind of depends a bit on your personality. But I want to touch now on the skills you need. And the PMI talk about leadership skills. They talk about strategic and business management, and also technical project management. So they talk about 3 different skill areas, which I think is quite a helpful way of framing the kind of skills we need as project managers. And I mean, let's start with the soft skills, because you mentioned this previously. And as someone going into project management for the first time, they're probably thinking, well, hey, have I got any of these skills that I need? So let's just quickly touch on some of those soft skills that you say. I mean, you mentioned you brought them to the table when you started your role as a project manager. Do you want to just touch on those?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that some important soft skills, you know, that goes beyond, oh, I have people skills. I think that it's knowing how to listen. I think that's a big part of project management. So not just listen to take notes and listen to catch the action items, but listen for what might be a red flag. Listen for the tone in the team's voices when they're giving you a status. And if there's anything to a little bit dig for, if there's concern there. And same with the client when you're going through reviews with them. Listen for apprehension in their voice. Maybe they're saying it's okay, but they're going to have some feedback to their higher up later, and it's going to get escalated eventually on your end. So I think that having listening skills is huge. I think your own organizational skills, and I say own because that differs from person to person. Some people, it might meet in pen on paper to-do lists. Other people, it might be a software. It might be Microsoft project that they use. But you need to have organizational skills that does work for the project and that is flexible with your team and depending on the organization within which you're working. I think, you know, some of the skills that I look for when I have a new PM is that they are asking questions, having the balance between asking questions, but able to retain that information. But then also like not being afraid to ask questions, but then also making decisions, you know, knowing when to ask forgiveness instead of permission, you know, someone who knows how to, you know, take the wheel a little bit and maybe make things happen and then look for feedback, but finding that balance, right? But then when it comes to asking questions, like don't just take the notes, don't just push the paper, like have one-on-ones with each of the discipline leads and learn about what you're doing and understand the requirements which you're writing or you're managing. I think that those are the soft skills that you can't really teach. You can help coach on it, but you can't read about it in a textbook. You can learn about the iron triangle, but you can't learn about how to properly listen and be the champion for both the project team and the client team.
Yeah, and we're going to deep dive into skills in another video, but I think the ability to lead teams, so the ability to engage with different people, to communicate, as Kelly's been talking about, to cast a vision and bring people along with you, and part of that is a coaching role as well. But these kind of soft skills are skills that are really hard to teach, and a lot of them you learn from experience, but we can all continually get better at them. There are some hard skills though, where there are specific things that we can learn how to do. Things like project planning, risk management, estimation. These are technical skills you can learn. We've actually got a course called Mastering Digital Project Management if you're looking to get into project management and learn some of these hard skills, but they're always combined with the soft skills. So for example, when we're estimating, we're always doing it in conjunction with a team. So those soft skills, working with people, communicating clearly, is really key. So we've got the soft skills, we've got the hard skills, and then the kind of the icing on the cake, I think, is the kind of strategic aspect of it. And the part of that is, knowing why we're doing the project in the first place, knowing or understanding the ROI and the return on the investment and the earned value that the project is going to deliver. But having that kind of business sense, I think is the third part of the skills that the PMI talks about, which I think is a really useful way of framing the skills that we need to be a project manager. So I hope that has been useful for you in thinking about, hey, is project management right for me? It's great. It's also challenging. There's lots of skills you need, but if you're interested in lots of different things, you love people, you love communication, maybe it's a great role for you. And if you want to find out more, go to thedigitalprojectmanager.com and check out our membership, where you'll find all kinds of resources. You'll find templates, you'll find workshops, and ongoing monthly training to really up your skills and make you be a better project manager. But until next time, thanks for watching.